You know, in a lot of instances, I've tried to talk about things I don't think are talked about that often. And one of the more societal issues that persist and probably will go on for until the end of time is this rewarding of bad behavior, uh, and yet expecting someone to do good things. So basically, what this means is that if you work at a job for 30 years, you're going to get a mediocre pay, and that's about it. But if you go in some place and you know kill over 30 people or 30 people, all of a sudden your face is flashed all over the news. You're the topic of all these different cycles, or possibly making a book written about you, a movie, which has been done in multiple instances. And I've always tried to warn that when you give people who actually did something productive the cold shoulder in terms of their recognition and what all attention you want to present to them, you create a scenario where what you preach is not what you do in practice. So, for example, if I say, "Oh man, I really like people who, you know, stand up for others, and they're here to help people, and blah 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 blah," and instead of sitting here and actually talking about people like that, whether they're a historical figure or someone that is in my own life doing that, I mention I talk about Hitler and all these other people who have gone out and been considered to be negative influences on the world, such as Stalin. What I say is not going to be what I practice, and that's exactly what's happening now. And a lot of people, when you talk about wanting individuals who are considered normal to get special treatment for doing the right thing, there's this idea that supposedly, oh, that would be boring, nobody would watch it. When in reality, the very simple thing is that most of us, even if we have, the same job, have different life experiences that I'm sure, if told by a talented writer and acted out by people who knew what they were doing, could be compelling. But there's not the when you have a developmental stage. Oh, let's write this movie. You have to sell an idea to people that can put the go ahead or the cancellation on that project. And a lot of times when they're hearing buzzwords about, oh, this was in the news for 30 weeks last year and this person is suspected of doing all these other crimes, they're more likely to pay attention to that than they are to, oh, this is someone's you know dad that works at this restaurant for 40 years, and he was a pillar of the community, and blah 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 blah. They're not going to be concerned with the latter, not because the person did something wrong or wasn't a figure that helped out people around them. They're going to look for whatever they think can give them the shortcut to good ratings. I'm of the belief that a talented writer can make most things interesting. Um, and I believe that because, again, we have these different life experiences that go along. So, for example, everyone or most people go through 8 years of elementary or middle school, and then 4 years of high school. But break that down by what happened each year. What was significant about your time from the other person's time? Maybe the person who was on the basketball team had a different experience from the guy that just sat by himself. Um, and I've spoken about this before, but it's problematic that we keep sitting here and getting surprised when people go out and do things to get notoriety that are considered by us to not be good, while letting people who do decent things just kind of let their name fade to the background and have no memorial other than a tombstone when they die, or some itty bitty pay for working some job. It just screams wrong to me. But it's kind of, we're already seeing it in how we deal with people, in this current era. Um, we just don't care, and I don't think we've ever cared. And I think the reason I'm more adamant about it now is because we've, in the last 20 years, experienced all of these different shootings and other acts of terror in the U.S. And there's the narrative that's always been painted is these are bad things, don't do them. But we're saying this while we show you the details and focus of this person's life. Um, and we're preaching to you don't that something is bad, but rewarding the person who did it with all of this coverage, all of this exposure. And it feels like one of those things where no matter what case I make, it's just going to keep going. I guess that's the ultimate, slap in the face to wanting something to be different. But I try to exercise this policy in my own life. I try to focus on those that do things I like, and kind of push aside the ones that do things that I'm opposed to, or actively are harming or otherwise don't bring any satisfaction or joy to me, because I want to practice what I preach. So thank you for watching, and if you have someone in your life that does something for you, tell them thank you, because society will not, their job will not, in a lot of cases, members of their family and quote unquote friends will not. Um, so, food for thought.